Chapter 1431, Myriad Realms, One Master's Failsafe, Fortune-Blessed Disciple. After entering the world core, Tang Xiu actually saw his master, free and unfettered supreme god. He, too, was as stupefied as Tang Xiu, but he called out to Tang Xiu with a genial smile on his face in the next moment. "My disciple, aren't you surprised to see your master here?" Tang Xiu could feel that his master was happy to see him from his face. "Master, can you tell what the world core is exactly? And why does it have a smidgen of divine sense that you have left behind?" Tang Xiu greeted his master respectfully and voiced out his curiosity. The world core is also known as the Myriad Realms core, and the person who has it can control the myriad realms. The reason why my divine sense is present here is that I obtained the world core once. The free and unfettered supreme god remained silent for a while after hearing Tang Xiu's question and also revealed a sad look on his face, before he answered the question gloomily. "Didn't the myth say it's only possible to control the immortal world by refining the world core?" Tang Xiu was shocked by the free and unfettered supreme god's revelation, so he failed to notice the abnormal expression on his master's face. "What you're referring to is just a myth. Aren't there always people who take rumors seriously?" The free and unfettered supreme god sighed. "Do you know the history of the world core? While the 12 supreme gods engaged in the Battle of Ruin, they actually extracted the divinity vein of the primogenitor star and then stripped it from all its cultivation resources, as well. After that, they spent another 1,000 years creating a divine item and then transplanted this divinity vein into it. This divine item doesn't just have the primogenitor star's divinity vein, it also contains all the heavenly laws comprehended by the 12 supreme gods as well as their subordinate god kings, god monarchs, god emperors, god sovereigns, and supreme gods. The ambitions of the 12 supreme gods don't just lie in controlling the god realm. They wish to control the myriad realms and proclaim themselves as the rulers of all realms. Refining the world core is equivalent to obtaining countless cultivation resources, as well as gaining control of countless heavenly laws that allow the person to control the god realm, immortal world, demon realm, void realm, Asura realm, and the other realms. Unfortunately, I saw through their schemes, but they besieged me after I obtained the world core. While battling with the 12 supreme gods, I destroyed all the heavenly laws of the god kings, god monarchs, god emperors, god sovereigns and supreme gods and also messed up the heavenly laws of the 12 supreme gods intentionally, using an ultimate divine power to send the world core to the immortal world. In the following years, I was pursued by the 12 supreme gods endlessly and simply didn't have any time to look for the world core. The 12 supreme gods should have also sent their incarnations to the immortal world to look for the world core, but since I had messed up their heavenly laws within the world core, they found it very difficult to find it with just their incarnations. As they couldn't find the world core, the 12 supreme gods released a mission in the god realm and requested the help of all deities to look for the world core, but they didn't reveal the truth about the world core to anyone. After listening to the free and unfettered supreme god's words, Tang Xiu was deeply shaken by the truth. The rumors he had heard about the world core were actually all false, as it wasn't the core of the immortal world, and was instead an ultimate divine item that could control the myriad realms. It wasn't an item of the immortal world and was instead a treasure of the god realm created by the combined efforts of the 12 supreme gods. After its creation, other than the 12 supreme gods and the free and unfettered supreme god, only 5 people had ever come into contact with the world core, and one among them was an almighty deity who had crossed over to the immortal world. Although he hadn't refined the world core entirely and just comprehended a few heavenly laws within the world core, it allowed him to expand the immortal world by several million times and establish the strongest force there. This deity obviously knew some secrets of the world core, so he was often dissatisfied by the power he had obtained from it and was eliminated by the backlash of the heavenly laws. In the end, after the almighty deity, the next person to obtain the world core was an almighty Asura. He refined a section of the world core because of a fortuitous encounter and almost ascended to the god realm by relying on it, but at the crucial moment, He entered a state of cultivation deviation under the mental hints of the divine sense left behind by the free and unfettered Supreme God and perished eternally. After that, the World Core passed through the hands of Jimmu and Duanmu Lin before falling into Tang Xiu's hands in the end. As Jimmu and Duanmu Lin's cultivation was too low, they never had a chance to refine the World Core, and only Tang Xiu, who could use divine force, managed to do it. My disciple, you're quite fortunate to have obtained the World Core because my divine sense would have disappeared after 3 years. So, even if you obtained the World Core 3 years later, it would have been quite difficult for you to truly obtain it. Seeing that Tang Xiu was still reflecting over the story behind the World Core, the free and unfettered Supreme God didn't disturb him and instead waited for him to digest the information before he continued speaking. Since you have obtained my legacy as well as the World Core, let me do one last thing for you as your master. The free and unfettered Supreme God waved his hands as he spoke and formed an esoteric symbol in the void. The 12 Supreme Gods really believed that I destroyed all the heavenly laws except theirs, but how could I be willing to destroy such a nearly perfect divine item? The free and unfettered God revealed a pleased smile on his face and said, "This old man is proud of 3 things in his entire life. The first thing is creating the free and unfettered divine path and fooling the 12 Supreme Gods. The second thing is acting like a wolf in sheep's clothing and seizing the World Core from the hands of the 12 Supreme Gods, and playing a trick on the World Core and deceiving the 12 Supreme Gods. Those poor fellows didn't know who stole the World Core to the very end. The third is actually taking down 7 of the 12 Supreme Gods along with me." The old man let out a burst of bold and magnificent laughter within the pocket world, and even Tang Xiu felt restless after hearing his words as the 3 feats performed by the free and unfettered Supreme God were all major world-shaking events that benefited everyone. The chaotic pocket world gradually gained colors along with old man's laughter as a series of heavenly laws that embodied the ultimate divine powers emerged one after the other, followed by a rich amount of divine origin force that permeated the entire pocket world rapidly. Tang Xiu just took a single breath of air and felt the bottleneck of his cultivation relax a little and his understanding and control over this world to deepen. My disciple, refining the World Core will allow your cultivation to soar by 3 stages, so I'm not worried about your cultivation right now. However, you must remember to avenge me by getting rid of the remaining 5 Supreme Gods and their immoral subordinates, after your cultivation progresses and restore order to the God realm. The free and unfettered Supreme God's voice echoed in his ears while Tang Xiu observed the changes within the World Core inquisitively. It was also at this time Tang Xiu noticed that the image of the free and unfettered Supreme God was dissipating slowly, and his voice was also becoming more and more illusory. "Master." Tang Xiu's eyes welled up with tears when he recalled everything this old man had done for him, and he couldn't help but call out to him loudly. Unfortunately, the divine sense of the free and unfettered God had already weakened a lot over these years. Having already expended his remaining energy after unsealing the heavenly laws and the primogenitor star's divinity vein in the World Core, he dissipated thoroughly from this world. "Master, your disciple shall fulfill your desire and eliminate the remnants of the 12 Supreme Gods for you and restore order to the God realm." Tang Xiu enunciated his words while silently kowtowing towards the region where the free and unfettered Supreme God had dissipated. After calming down, Tang Xiu began to analyze the interior of the World Core solemnly. After the free and unfettered God had cast the spell, the World Core had changed into an entirely different appearance. Although the former World Core was also filled with heavenly laws and had a rich amount of divine origin force, the world inside the World Core was just a chaotic space. He wasn't able to see anything 3 meters away from him and also couldn't investigate it with his divine sense. However, the current World Core was filled with blue skies full of white clouds as well as mountains and rivers. It was now possible to clearly see the location of the divinity vein, the length and thickness of the loci of all heavenly laws, and the numerous cultivation resources present in this world. 9th grade amethyst mushroom, divine Yin flower, blazing yang spirit leaf, frostflame soul consolidation fruit, and resurrection devil fruit. All the items required for reviving Old Sycamore and Eagle are present here. Tang Xiu felt really pleased as he had found all the items required for resurrecting Old Sycamore and Eagle, after taking a few steps around the pocket world. According to his plans, it would have taken at least several hundred more years for him to gather all these items. Tang Xiu couldn't wait to refine the divine herbs in the cauldron after collecting the divine herbs. However, he felt a rumbling sound from his sea of consciousness when he took out the pill cauldron, and his cultivation broke through the bottleneck of the ancient god stage and progressed into the god king stage momentarily. The originally tame divine force present in the world core had now turned violent after the free and unfettered supreme god spell, and poured inside Tang Xiu's body crazily. The rich energy present in the world core became even more violent after Tang Xiu stepped forward and almost crammed inside his body forcefully, so he broke through to the God King stage without any sign at all. The violent undulations of the energy present in the world core didn't weaken even though Tang Xiu had become a God King and slammed against his meridians and flesh fiercely. His cultivation also soared up like a rocket and progressed through the early, middle, late, and peak God King stage, and, followed by an unshackling sound, Tang Xiu's cultivation had now reached the God Monarch stage. In just half an incense stick's worth of time, Tang Xiu's cultivation had progressed from the God King stage to the God Monarch stage, which was an unprecedented speed of cultivation even in the God realm. However, the matter had yet to end. The rich energy present in the world core kept flooding Tang Xiu's body even after he broke through to the God Monarch stage and wreaked havoc inside his body. The same phenomenon occurred again. His cultivation progressed from the early, middle, late, and peak God Monarch stage. In just 4 hours, he had broken through to the God Emperor stage. After he became a God Emperor, the pace with which the energy of the world core poured into Tang Xiu's body slowed down by a lot, and 6 hours later, the energy stopped flooding his body. Tang Xiu was a peak stage God Emperor by now and just a step away from breaking through to the God Sovereign stage. This sudden progression in cultivation had spooked Tang Xiu, and after making sure that it hadn't left any sequelae in his body and divine sense multiple times, he sighed in relief and began preparing to resurrect Old Sycamore and Eagle. Chapter 1432, Myriad Realms, To an eternity is too long, one needs to seize every moment. Tang Xiu actually planned to resurrect Old Sycamore and Eagle inside the world core, but he still had some lingering fears after going through the terrifying experience just now, so he decided to exit the world core and returned to the pocket world in Longquan Mountain Range. Tang Xiu could resurrect Old Sycamore and Eagle with just the cultivation of a supreme immortal, as long as he succeeded in refining the divine medicine, let alone now when his cultivation had already climbed to the God Emperor stage. A burning incense stick's worth of time later, the 2 fragrant medicinal pills shrouded in spiritual energies were produced successfully in the 2 cauldrons. Tang Xiu took out Old Sycamore's and Eagle's soul and blood essence and used the pills to help model perfect bodies for them, according to their appearance when they were alive. After that, he injected their soul and blood essence into their medicinal bodies respectfully. Tang Xiu acted with the utmost prudence during the entire process and finally sighed in relief after finishing the entire procedure, without a hiccup. He used his divine sense to manifest the lake water of the Yin-Yang Divinity Lake in the air before him after that, and transformed it into 2 clouds of mist and shrouded the 2 medicinal bodies in them, allowing the mist to permeate the bodies little by little. Old Sycamore was the first one to open his eyes 2 hours later and revealed a dazed expression when he saw a smiling Tang Xiu before him, unable to comprehend where he was right now. Old Sycamore, you did well, and your brother did well too, Tang Xiu said emotionally after directing his gaze at him for a while. Your Majesty, it seems like my death wasn't in vain since you are still alive. Did you resurrect me and Eagle? Old Sycamore looked all around and then asked hesitantly after seeing Eagle look at him with an equally puzzled expression. That's right. I would have unquestionably died back then, but your and Eagle's sacrifice allowed me to live. Tang Xiu recounted the events that had occurred after Old Sycamore and Eagle's death selectively. You have our gratitude for resurrecting us, Your Majesty. Our eternal loyalty shall belong to none other than you. Old Sycamore and Eagle's eyes welled up with tears after learning what happened, and the two of them kneeled in front of Tang Xiu immediately. I still have some things I need to deal with on Earth, so consolidate your cultivation in the world inside my Dantian. We shall battle in the God realm once we return. Tang Xiu chatted with Old Sycamore and Eagle for a few moments and then transferred the two of them into the world inside his Dantian directly. After making arrangements for them, Tang Xiu entered the world core again and analyzed the heavenly laws inside carefully. He chose the simplest and easiest heavenly law first and gradually moved on to comprehend the relatively harder and complex heavenly laws. Tang Xiu even sat down on the peak of the Divinity Vein Mountain directly to comprehend the heavenly laws better, as it was common sense in the God realm that refining divine stones could promote the rate of comprehension. As such, the increment in the rate of comprehension through refining the divine vein was 100,000 times faster. This session of comprehension lasted for 10,000 years. In these 10,000 years, Tang Xiu had comprehended the heavenly laws of the God Kings, God Monarchs, God Emperors, and God Sovereigns left inside the world core, and also comprehended the heavenly laws of the 12 supreme gods and the free and unfettered God. Tang Xiu's cultivation also soared as a result of this, and he had already become a peak stage supreme god now. Just a single instance of enlightenment actually lasted 10,000 years. This divinity vein is too magical. The clothes on Tang Xiu's body disintegrated into dust when he stood up, and his gaze had also become much more mysterious and charming. An attached look appeared on Tang Xiu's face when he looked at the Divinity Vein Mountain that had halved in size. Actually, Tang Xiu could have comprehended all the heavenly laws in the world core even without the Divinity Vein, but it was hard to say how long that would have taken him. It could have been 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years, or even 10 million years. However, Tang Xiu didn't want to wait that long, as he was afraid that the remaining 5 supreme gods would have long perished by then, and that would leave him incapable of avenging his master. An eternity is too long, one needs to seize every minute. The words of a famous person from Earth appeared in Tang Xiu's mind suddenly. Tang Xiu had obviously made a lot of gains from using up so much of the divinity vein. Setting aside the fact that his cultivation had climbed to the summit of the Supreme God stage, he had comprehended the heavenly laws of hundreds of thousands of God Kings, God Monarchs, God Emperors, and God Sovereigns, and also experienced their entire cultivation process, which was equivalent to cultivating with divine force, and progressed his cultivation by leagues. Furthermore, another gain of his was that he had already become the Lord of Myriad Realms after refining the world core and could control the life and death of the Myriad Realms now. And becoming the Lord of Myriad Realms actually wasn't his largest gain. After he had comprehended all the heavenly laws inside the world core, he had combined all them through a flash of inspiration and created a dozen or so heavenly laws that belonged to him, and the strongest heavenly law among these was the space-time law. An eternity is too long, one needs to seize every moment. Tang Xiu whispered in his mind and exited the world core. As he used the space-time law, Tang Xiu's surroundings rippled with spatiotemporal fluctuations, and his body directly entered the time axis at the point when it was a day before he entered the pocket world in Longquan. Ji Mu, since you sent this fortune to me, I shall give you a satisfactory result. A favor needed to be repaid tenfold. Tang Xiu had obtained the world core because of the information provided by Ji Mu, so he didn't want to owe Ji Mu. Accepting him as a disciple was far from enough to repay the favor of him providing information regarding the world core. Tang Xiu's figure shuttled through space-time and arrived in the netherworld. Dark mists lingered within the netherworld and depicted a truly eerie scene. Even the palace of the King of Hell was overcast in gloomy darkness and was shrouded in an aura of decay. The extraction of the divinity vein, as well as the sealing of the divine origin city after the Battle of Ruin, had led to the gradual disappearance of divine origin force from the primogenitor star, and the divine origin force within the netherworld inside the Yellow Springs had been equally affected by this. The King of Hell had God Monarch stage cultivation before the Battle of Ruin, but due to the disappearance of divine origin force after it, he was forced to sacrifice his cultivation to keep extending his lifespan. Hence, he barely had a peak crossing tribulation stage cultivation right now. As his cultivation had dropped by a lot, his control over the 6 paths of reincarnation had also weakened greatly, and he could barely control the life and death of Earth's creatures now. King of Hell, you do remember me? Using the divine power of incarnation, Tang Xiu transformed into sacred demon supreme god's appearance and sauntered into the King of Hell's palace before shouting at him. The King of Hell almost attacked reflexively in anger after hearing someone shout inside his palace, but an invisible force bound his movements before he could even say anything and filled his mind with endless fear momentarily. The King of Hell revealed an ecstatic look when he saw the appearance of the person who had arrived before him. This king greets the supreme god. Your Excellency, you have finally come to visit us in the Netherworld. We have waited for you at the Netherworld for several epochs. The King of Hell didn't dare to look up at Tang Xiu and bowed his head subserviently. You good for nothing. I assigned you to manage the 6 paths of reincarnation, yet you have made such a mess of it. What's the use in keeping you alive then? Tang Xiu ignored his subservient manner and slapped him directly. Fetch the Book of Life and Death. I want to see how well you have managed the 6 paths of reincarnation. The King of Hell didn't show any resentment after being slapped a few dozen or so meters away by Tang Xiu and didn't hesitate to hand the Book of Life and Death over to him after crawling up. Tang Xiu scanned the Book of Life and Death with his divine sense and found Renranran and Ji Ro's name quickly. He then erased their names from the book cleanly and requested a few thousand souls from the King of Hell before leaving. From the very beginning, Tang Xiu neither revealed his purpose behind this visit to the Netherworld nor did he assign any new task to the King of Hell. The pitiful King of Hell racked his brains hard for the next several hundred years about why the Prime Supreme God had descended to the Netherworld, and whether he had missed an opportunity unknowingly. After leaving the Netherworld, Tang Xiu allowed the thousands of souls to enter the 6 paths of reincarnation and then reconstructed Renranran's and Ji Ro's bodies, before sending their souls inside. Ji Mu cried in joy when Tang Xiu appeared before him with Renranran and Ji Ro and almost thought he was dreaming. Ji Mu, what are your plans for the future? Tang Xiu called Ji Mu to the side after a while and asked his opinion. Disciple shall leave the decision in Master's hands, Ji Mu replied without the slightest hesitation. You have a responsible nature and I suspect you don't want to live a life of killing after experiencing what happened to Ranran and Ruru. How about helping me supervise the Netherworld then? Tang Xiu asked after pondering for a while. Supervise the Netherworld? Ji Mu's eyes turned into wide saucers after hearing this and thought his master was kidding with him. That's right. Become the King of Hell who commands all the palace lords of the Yama King palaces and supervise the 6 paths of reincarnation. Tang Xiu explained patiently, after obtaining the world core from Duanmu Lin and refining it successfully. I have already become the Lord of Myriad Realms and am the overseer of the life, death, and order of the Myriad Realms now. The Netherworld and the 6 paths of reincarnation are the most special and important division of the Myriad Realms, so I'm not reassured in leaving its supervision in others' hands. Only you can undertake this heavy responsibility. Thank you, Master. This disciple will definitely live up to the trust you have placed in me. Ji Mu finally understood how heavy a responsibility it was after hearing Tang Xiu's explanation, but he didn't hesitate to bear this responsibility at all. After talking with Ji Mu, Tang Xiu went to meet Long Zhengyu and the others. Long Zhengyu, Li Laoshan, Yu Kai, Hu Qingsong, Zhao Liang, and the rest of the Tang sect's disciples were discussing crossing the tribulation, so they gathered around him subconsciously with ecstatic expressions on their faces when they saw him arrive. Over the past few decades, other than Long Zhengyu, 3 more disciples of the Tang sect had reached the crossing tribulation stage, so the 4 of them were planning to cross the tribulation together this time while the rest of them planned to cultivate patiently and ascend to the immortal world when they reached the crossing tribulation stage in the future. As they were going to ascend together, Long Zhengyu handed over almost all of the cultivation resources to Li Laozhan along with the administrative rights of the Tang sect, while the Su family undertook the management of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Tang Xiu greeted everyone and then teleported to the Ghost King Valley in Shenong Ridge. Chapter 1433, Myriad Realms, 3 Tang Xiu refines the puppets, Golden Pang's tough battle with Sacred Demon. Ghost King Valley was a deep valley formed by the 3 huge mountains around it and was steeped in dense fog the entire year. The shrubs here were almost 1 to 2 meters tall and it was covered in brambles everywhere while the mountain rocks were rugged and steep. Just a slight mishap could cause one's foot to slip and make them disappear into the depthless chasm. The creatures of the valley were so strong that they could contend with a crossing tribulation stage cultivator. As such, the place had become deserted and rarely had any visitors. Tang Xiu had only visited the outer sections of the Ghost King Valley during his previous visit and left quickly, after obtaining the Soul Phantasmagoria demonic flower and the demonic revival grass. This was because the strength of the fierce beasts in just the outer sections of the Ghost King Valley was as strong as his, so he didn't dare to enter the depths of the valley. This time, Tang Xiu had come here as a peak stage supreme god and as the lord of myriad realms, so he obviously held no fear at all. A few fierce beasts targeted Tang Xiu and surrounded him the moment he stepped into the Ghost King Valley, but he just glared at them once and continued walking deeper into the valley. The unfortunate fierce beasts thought a delicious prey had come to deliver itself to them, but they never thought that it was actually the arrival of their nemesis. The fierce beasts didn't even have a chance to howl before their entire existence was wiped out by Tang Xiu's glare. Learning from this event, Tang Xiu didn't hide his aura anymore and used his divine sense to manifest 11 incarnations alongside his main body, and the 12 figures walked into the depths of Ghost King Valley directly. If Sacred Demon's supreme god were present, he would have definitely recognized them as the auras of these 12's heavenly laws and divine force were actually the same as the group of 12 supreme gods headed by him. No other fierce beast dared to block Tang Xiu's path for the rest of his journey because of the suppression from his powerful aura. An hour later, Tang Xiu reached the depths of the Ghost King Valley and discovered the aura of a destructive divine force from inside. The 100 Supreme God Puppets? If I obtain these 100 Supreme God Puppets, wouldn't that mean I can take over the entire God realm in an instant? Such a thought emerged within Tang Xiu's mind suddenly. Greetings, lords. Tang Xiu had subconsciously crossed the 100-meter range of the Supreme God Puppets while pondering on the matter, so the puppets had sensed his arrival as well. Tang Xiu commended his wit when the 100 Supreme God Puppets surrounded him suddenly, as he would have definitely entered a fierce battle with dozens of puppets if he hadn't made prior preparations. Tang Xiu sighed inaudibly after looking at the blank look in the eyes of the Supreme God Puppets as well as their lifeless bodies. If it weren't for the wicked 12 Supreme Gods, these deities would have certainly become overlords and wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. As Tang Xiu had incarnated into the 12 Supreme Gods right now, these Supreme God Puppets didn't show any hostility or vigilance towards him. Tang Xiu passed through the Supreme God Puppets and erased the soul imprints left behind by the 12 Supreme Gods and replaced them with his own soul imprints. Although it sounded like a simple task, it was a pretty arduous one since just a slight mishap on his end could ruin the Supreme God Puppet. Tang Xiu spent 3 whole days converting the Supreme God Puppets into his battle puppets. He was dead tired by now, as erasing a soul imprint and replacing it with his own were both extremely delicate tasks and required him to rest and recover for some time to refine just a single Supreme God puppet. However, since he was inside the Divine Origin City, he wasn't worried about running out of Divine Origin Force at all. It's indeed worthy of being called the Divine Origin City. The Divine Origin Force present here is much denser than the God realms, and if it weren't for the array isolating this place, this Divine Origin Force would have spread to the outside world and made the entire Earth realm much stronger than the God realm. After coming to the Ghost King Valley one more time, Tang Xiu had already determined that the 3 mountains around the valley hadn't formed naturally and had been moved over by someone, using divine force and were the key elements of the array. Furthermore, the main function of the three mountains was to prevent the divine origin force from flowing outside. The divine origin force inside the divine origin city isn't replenishing itself. Tang Xiu discovered the abnormality quickly. Is it because of the missing divinity vein mountain? Tang Xiu felt relieved internally when he recalled that the 12 supreme gods had extracted the divinity vein to create the world core. According to Tang Xiu's speculation, it was highly likely that the divinity vein was hidden under the divine origin city and was the source of the divine origin force of the city. The 12 supreme gods had extracted the divinity vein to create a new divine origin city, but unfortunately, Tang Xiu was the one who picked up this windfall in the end. Since the divine origin city and the divinity vein were a singular entity, it's time to let them become one again. Tang Xiu waved his hand and moved the divine origin city inside the world core and placed it above the divinity vein. As divine origin force was the source of their powers, the supreme god puppets became restless when the divine origin city disappeared. Tang Xiu chuckled and received the 100 supreme god puppets into the world core as well. After he was done with this, Tang Xiu left one of his supreme god incarnations on Earth to handle some of the unfinished matters while his main body returned to the god realm immediately. The reason why he had returned to the god realm with haste was that his connection with the Golden Peng was becoming weaker by the moment, and this gave him an ominous premonition. He obviously didn't plan to keep staying on Earth since the members of the Great Tang Empire were all still in the Jade Pool Divine Domain. Right now, in the Jade Pool Divine Domain, the Golden Peng's wings had been snapped off already, and its entire body was crawling on the ground right now. A sea of corpses laid behind it, and even Drunken Immortal and the others were covered in blood right now and couldn't even put up a resistance. Golden Peng, I'm giving you one last chance. Form a master and servant contract with me and become my battle mount again, or else, the ants behind you will all die along with you. Sacred Demon Supreme God said impatiently while directing an ice-cold gaze towards the Golden Peng. Sacred Demon, you exterminated my Golden Peng clan and deceived me for several eras. You even kept me trapped for a dozen or so eras, so do you believe I would join the ranks of a traitor like you? The Golden Peng spat out a mouthful of foul blood after hearing Sacred Demon Supreme God's words. Since you want to continue acting stubbornly, don't blame me for acting ruthlessly. A vicious glint flashed through Sacred Demon Supreme God's eyes as he swung his divine artifact at the Golden Peng. The Golden Peng ignored the threat and turned its head towards Drunken Immortal and the others before saying guiltily, "Forgive me for implicating you. You still had some chance to live, but you all fell into danger because of my arrival." After Tang Xiu had left the Jade Pool Divine Domain, Drunken Immortal and Star Radiance led the members of the Great Tang Empire to quickly take control of the Jade Pool Divine Domain. The number of people that ascended through the immortal exuviate pond in the Jade Pool Divine Domain kept increasing year by year, over the next 100 years, and these consisted of the people from other galaxies and the Milky Way galaxy, which included a lot of members of the Great Tang Empire. Under the supervision of Drunken Immortal, Star Radiance, and the others, the Jade Pool Divine Domain became more and more prosperous, and their strength also climbed up like a growing bamboo shoot. Drunken Immortal had the highest cultivation and had already become a peak stage heavenly god, and Star Radiance had also become a great god, while the others had also progressed their cultivation collectively. However, an unexpected event occurred while the members of the Great Tang Empire focused on progressing their strength. The leader of the 12 supreme gods, Sacred Demon, was someone from the Marionette Galaxy, so the Marionette Galaxy had a lot of domains under its control. The Sky Jade Divine Domain was also the domain of the Sacred Demon Supreme God, so, as its subsidiary domain, the Jade Pool Divine Domain was also a domain of the Sacred Demon Supreme God, and all the important posts of these domains were held by descendants of the Sacred Demon Supreme God. It was the centennial birthday celebration of the Sacred Demon Supreme God 2 years ago, so all his descendants had sent him presents to congratulate him. However, after tallying up the presents, the deity in charge of counting them found that 2 presents were missing. After a thorough investigation, it was discovered that the Peargold and Pearwood brothers from the Jade Pool Divine Domain hadn't sent presents, and hadn't even made an appearance in the celebration. The deity in charge of Sky Jade Divine Domain felt infuriated after learning this and planned to dispatch the army to capture and penalize the brothers before the sacred demon supreme god learned of the matter. However, when the army of Sky Jade Divine Domain reached the Jade Pool Divine Domain, they discovered that it had changed hands. The Jade Pool Divine Domain was on guard about the arrival of the Sky Jade Divine Domain's army. They led the army into a maliciously prepared trap and wiped it out before it could even declare war on them. 2 days had passed by the time the deity in charge of Sky Jade Divine Domain realized something was wrong, and the sacred demon supreme god had already learned that Peargold and Pearwood hadn't attended his birthday celebration. However, as he had too many descendants, he wasn't bothered by this event and just passed a casual directive to punish the deity in charge of Sky Jade Divine Domain appropriately. The pitiful deity in charge of the Sky Jade Divine Domain had his life reaped by the enforcers of the Divine Palace and, before they could even figure out where their army disappeared to and once a new deity took the reins, they launched a full-on attack on the Jade Pool Divine Domain immediately. Although the comprehensive strength of the Jade Pool Divine Domain was weaker than the Sky Jade Divine Domain, they had prepared well to secure a victory and were also proficient in the art of war because of their ample experience. Hence, this battle actually continued for almost half a year. The new deity in charge of the Sky Jade Divine Domain sensed something was wrong and was forced to retreat through the dangerous battlefield, and reported back to the Divine Palace. The sacred demon supreme god became infuriated after learning that someone had already taken over a domain of his, and sent an aide to deal with the matter personally. It was also around this time that the Golden Pang returned to the god realm. After showing the token Tang Xiu had given it, it obtained the approval and trust of all the members of the Great Tang Empire, and its strength recovered back to the supreme god stage rapidly by using the large number of cultivation resources that the empire had gathered. This led to the tragic end of the people from the sacred demon supreme god's faction who had arrived in the Jade Pool Divine Domain to deal with the issue, with each subsequent one welcoming their death. The Golden Pang would have already led the Great Tang Empire to conquer the Sky Jade Divine Domain, if it weren't scared of the possibility of the sacred demon supreme god discovering its identity. The battle continued for more than a year this way, and the members of the Divine Palace kept falling to their enemies in this battle. This turned the sacred demon supreme god into the laughingstock in the eyes of the other 4 supreme gods, so he was forced to make a trip to the Jade Pool Divine Domain personally to find out what was going on. The sacred demon supreme god was frightened out of his wits when he saw the Golden Pang and the master and servant contract on its body, thinking that another variable like the free and unfettered supreme god had emerged in the god realm, so he began to scheme behind the scenes. The cautious sacred demon supreme god didn't dare to show his face because of the fear, hid in a secret location, and kept sending large forces to deplete the Golden Pang's divine force, coming close to killing the Golden Pang a few times. After probing for another half a year, the sacred demon supreme god confirmed that the Golden Pang had returned to the god realm alone and also confirmed that the master and servant contract on its body hadn't provided any assistance to it at all. Chapter 1434, Myriad Realms, for the unstoppable extermination of the Divine Palace. Strategizing to unify the Myriad Realms. End. Golden Pang, I'm giving you one last chance. Would you really prefer losing your life instead of surrendering to me? The sacred demon supreme god made one last attempt to persuade the Golden Pang after recalling all the years he had fought alongside it. The hatred of clan extermination is absolutely irreconcilable, so stop dreaming of it. The Golden Pang responded disdainfully. You've failed to cherish the opportunity. I obviously won't leave you alive anymore. The sacred demon supreme god gave up on the Golden Pang after seeing its determination and hacked down fiercely. At the same time, he closed his eyes in pain. In the next moment, a loud clanging sound echoed in sacred demon's ears, and when he opened his eyes, he found that his colossal blade had struck the ground and an unfamiliar young man stood before him, while the Golden Pang seemed to suddenly have disappeared. The one who had saved the Golden Peng in this critical juncture was none other than Tang Xiu, who had rushed back to the God Realm. After receiving the Golden Peng into the world core, Tang Xiu's gaze turned frosty when he saw Drunken Immortal, Star Radiance, and the others lying on the ground with injuries all over their bodies. Tang Xiu overlooked the time dilation between the God Realm and Earth. He hadn't expected 100 years would have passed in the few days he had spent on Earth, and also didn't expect so many troublesome events to occur. Tang Xiu didn't dare to imagine how the great Tang Empire would have ended up if he hadn't returned to the God Realm in time. Young man. Who are you? And where did you take the Golden Peng? Sacred Demon's cautious nature began to act up after seeing Tang Xiu stand before him so boldly. My identity doesn't matter. All that matters is for me to know who you are. After observing Sacred Demon for a while, Tang Xiu recalled his master's reminder and smiled suddenly. Then, he said the following words, I moved the Golden Peng into the world core I obtained. It's severely injured right now, so only the divinity vein inside the world core and the spiritual medicines inside can allow it to recover quickly. What did you say? World core. Young man, where did you find the world core? Can you let me see it? Sacred Demon was completely vigilant about Tang Xiu initially, but after the words world core, he urged Tang Xiu to let him see it impatiently. Tang Xiu casually threw the world core to Sacred Demon under his tense gaze. While Sacred Demon had his complete attention on the world core and was just about to touch it, a beam of sword light appeared suddenly and bisected Sacred Demon's body. Kid. You have a lot of guts for trying to dupe me. Sacred Demon roared in exasperation a few meters above and directed his angry gaze towards Tang Xiu. A young man had actually succeeded in fooling him. If it weren't for the fact that he had a divine-grade substitution puppet, he would have lost his life already. After all the years of ruling in the God Realm, Sacred Demon had never taken such a huge loss. Duping aside, I will even dare to kill you. Do you believe it? Tang Xiu replied to Sacred Demon coldly and used his divine sense to transfer everyone from the Jade Pool divine domain behind him, inside the world core. It's been a long time since anyone has dared to talk to me like this, and those who did so in the past have all died. So, how do you want to die? Sacred Demon probed Tang Xiu's cultivation secretly as he rebuked him. After noticing that Sacred Demon hadn't taken the initiative to attack, Tang Xiu immediately understood that the other side was afraid of his strength. The new enmity and the old enmity had accumulated, and even Tang Xiu didn't feel like wasting time to talk with Sacred Demon, so he directly took out the demon-killing divine sword of the free and unfettered Supreme God and surrounded Sacred Demon, instantly using the divine power of incarnation. The divine power of incarnation. Are you a descendant of the free and unfettered Supreme God? Sacred Demon cried out in alarm when he saw multiple incarnations of Tang Xiu surround him along with the divine artifact of the free and unfettered Supreme God in hand. Sacred Demon didn't hesitate and contacted the other Supreme Gods in the Divine Palace immediately. A descendant of the free and unfettered Supreme God has appeared along with the world core. It wasn't that Sacred Demon didn't wish to hog the world core. The reason he had contacted the other Supreme Gods was that he couldn't see through Tang Xiu's strength. Furthermore, he had also sensed the confidence and killing intent exuded by Tang Xiu's body. He had experienced the free and unfettered Supreme God's ambushes and assassinations multiple times, so he didn't dare to look down on him and gave his all even though he was only battling against his descendant. After receiving the Sacred Demon Supreme God's message, the other 4 Supreme Demons teleported to the battlefield right away. After all, the World Core was the collective creation of the 12 Supreme Gods back then, and possessing the World Core meant full control over the myriad realms. The World Core had an endless amount of heavenly laws stored in it and also had all the treasures the 12 Supreme Gods had gathered from the primogenitor star. The World Core was the true Divine Palace in the views of the 12 Supreme Gods, and the current Divine Palace was just an imitation of the World Core that they had created after losing the World Core, so its size and value really paled in comparison to it. Therefore, the World Core held an incomparable attractive force to the 12 supreme gods. When Tang Xiu discovered that all the 5 supreme gods had gathered up, a derisive smile suddenly appeared on his face. In the next moment, about 100 supreme god puppets were released from the World Core by Tang Xiu and began besieging the 5 supreme gods, under his orders. Sacred demon, you won't die a good death. You were fully aware that the other side had laid a trap, yet you still summoned us here. Damn it! Aren't these the supreme god puppets from the Divine Origin City? Why are they attacking us instead of listening to our orders? Lord, please stop attacking us. We're willing to serve you as long as you spare our lives. The 5 supreme gods knew they had no way out of the situation when they saw the supreme god puppets appear and seal their escape routes. If they had enough time to prepare, they would have mobilized their armies and gathered all their combat forces in the Jade Pool Divine Domain. The supreme god puppets brought by Tang Xiu would have had no use in that case. Unfortunately, Tang Xiu had appeared too suddenly, so the 5 supreme gods weren't on guard against him and never imagined that he actually had so many supreme god puppets on him. Although the battle strength of a supreme god puppet couldn't match a real supreme god, their numbers were too many. About 20 of them were besieging each supreme god, and Tang Xiu also kept sending beams of sword light at them to control their maneuvers, so the 5 supreme gods could only take a beating passively even though they were strong. Tang Xiu ignored the desperate pleas of the 5 supreme gods and silently ordered the supreme god puppets to increase their attacks, while he used the spacetime law to disturb the heavenly laws of the 5 supreme gods and accelerated their defeat. The 5 supreme gods stopped pleading after seeing that Tang Xiu was determined to kill them and began using their special skills, substitution puppets, battle mounts, divine artifacts, and consumed medicinal pills to boost their potential to the maximum. They then targeted Tang Xiu and joined hands to attack him unceasingly. Tang Xiu had already comprehended the heavenly laws of the 5 supreme gods and even experienced their cultivation process while doing so, and he had also analyzed their personalities clearly, so all of their schemes were just harmless, ineffective tricks in front of him. This was a battle between the supreme gods. This was a battle that overturned the seas and rivers and shattered the earth and skies. This was a battle that was unprecedented since the creation of the God realm. The 5 supreme gods were forced to reveal all their hidden aces and display their full strength since their lives were at stake here. On the other hand, Tang Xiu was afraid that the 5 supreme gods would flee and also feared that he wouldn't find such a good chance to kill all 5 of them in the future, so he also gave his all in this battle. He even didn't hesitate to detonate the supreme god puppets at some crucial moments just to prevent the supreme gods from fleeing. A wave of the sword tore the void open. A slash of the saber created a chasm. A punch of the fist produced a black hole. A kick of the leg sundered the earth apart. This fierce battle that blotted out the skies continued for 5 whole days. No one knew what this battle was about because everyone who had witnessed it had already turned into ashes. 5 days later, the Jade Pool Divine Domain and the Sky Jade Divine Domain had been wiped out from the God Realm, and all the domains of the Marionette Galaxy had almost turned into ruins, with each split into 8 huge sections, reducing the size of the God Realm to 1/3 of its initial size. Tang Xiu finally sighed in relief after confirming that the 5 supreme gods had truly perished from and didn't have any traces left in this world. He only had 27 supreme god puppets left now, and all of them were missing an arm or limb, causing Tang Xiu's heart to ache. The 5 supreme gods, however, indeed had a deep foundation and a plethora of life-saving treasures as well as unstoppable escape skills and unpredictable assassination skills. If it weren't for Tang Xiu's cautious nature that made him maintain a high degree of vigilance at all times, it would have been impossible for him to get rid of the 5 supreme gods altogether, and he might have even died under their attacks. The cheers of everyone from the Great Tang Empire welcomed Tang Xiu when he returned inside the World Core, along with the 27 supreme god puppets. Although they didn't have the strength to participate in this world-shattering battle, They were able to witness the entire battle from within the world core. These 5 days had been an emotional roller coaster for them, and even Star Radiance and Bella had fainted from the fear a few times over this short duration. Master, I thought I would have to wait for several 100,000 years before I could avenge the extermination of my clan, and might even have to harbor this grudge for my entire life, but I never imagined you would avenge my clan in just 100 years. The Golden Peng tapped its head on the ground before Tang Xiu several times to express its gratitude with tears all across its face. The Golden Peng had recognized Tang Xiu as its master only because it placed importance on Tang Xiu's growth potential. However, Tang Xiu's strength had completely subdued it right now. As for the members of the Great Tang Empire, there was no need to even say anything about them. Tang Xiu had already become someone they looked up to long ago, but even they had never imagined that Tang Xiu would become a supreme god in just a short 100 years, and wipe out the overseers of the Divine Palace, so they didn't even know what to say to him. Senior Golden Peng, although the 5 supreme gods of the Divine Palace have perished eternally, the Divine Palace has controlled the God Realm for millions of years, so there's no doubt that their influence is deeply rooted in the God Realm. I hope that you can take these 27 supreme god puppets to cleanse the entire God Realm, and wipe out the remnant forces of the Divine Palace within the next 50 years. Can you do it? Senior Drunken Immortal, Star Radiance, Bella. Although the Divine Palace doesn't exist any longer, the order of the God Realm must be maintained. I need you to help me bring order to the realm and enforce the laws of the Great Tang Empire across the entire God Realm, and turn it into a free, just, prosperous, and peaceful cultivation world. Can you do it? Old Sycamore Eagle. I need you to accompany me back to the immortal world to select suitable talents and help me maintain the order of the myriad realms, and recover the glory of the God Realm. Are you willing? After recounting the events that led to him refining the world core and becoming the Lord of Myriad Realms, after gaining a peak stage supreme god cultivation to everyone, Tang Xiu's expression turned solemn as a series of commands left his mouth.